Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides with Schla. And today we have for ya more of the usual. So, see how things go, but no, there's not a whole lot to get into at the moment. Sorry, just another example of somebody speeding when it's not benefiting them at all. So I probably could have went there, but I can't because again, somebody wanted to speed when they really have no benefit to. Um all right, good. Nice driver finally. Anyways, I did kind of some final research into the microphone situation, and I don't know. I'm feeling more and more like ready to really focus less on other people. You know, like as time goes on more and more, it's like it just seems like it's just never panning out for me at all, and it's wasting a lot of precious resources on stuff that isn't really worth it. So I have to just try to hang tight and work more on my craft, you know, which I really haven't been doing, right? Haven't really accomplished remotely as much as I thought I would, or I'm not really where I thought I would be, you know? So yeah, it's just like a whole thing that I really need to figure out at this rate. But yeah, I really want to get that new microphone set up. I'm probably going to wait until next week to order it, and then after that should be good to go. Should just end up buying it. Should be better quality than this microphone, and we'll just have to see how it goes, you know. We'll just have to see how it goes. It may become my new favorite microphone. I wonder how it will sound even just at home in general, you know. We'll just have to wait and see. But as usual, it's like the end of the week, Friday. I don't got much to say. Yeah, honestly, I mean, today went by super fast and it was a good day. But, you know, I wasn't really doing much deep thinking, so I don't really know what I have to. You know, it's a shame. It's a shame that there's been such a stagnation with the series, like in terms of, and I've said this before, I kind of want to have more varied content where you could have sometimes where it's something more light or funny, but I'm just not in that mood or mentality. So this is where we're at, you know. There's not too much that can be done about it. January's already over, so that's kind of cool. It went by pretty quick. Sorry, I'm just like embarrassed with myself because I'm really not, like, I don't know what I was thinking I mean, I wasn't really thinking I would talk about anything going into this, but I feel like awkward, you know, like I don't really know why, but it's like, yeah, it was just a good day, but it wasn't like a good day for me. I wasn't thinking of topics or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of tricky, the situation I'm in. Kind of tricky. But yeah, I wonder like what I'm going to end up doing or what progress I'll make. Hopefully, for a nice change, it'll be a nice weekend. Because the past couple weekends have been, you know, crazy. So it should be nice. And yeah, it looks like we're gonna hit traffic, which is kind of frustrating, but I can't say I'm all that shocked. Yeah, I don't know why this guy's. He was kind of not. Um, yeah, I can't say I'm that shocked. I mean, Friday tends to kind of be like that. It's pretty annoying, but yeah, I don't even know what deep topic. Like I'm just totally riffing off of nothing right now. I don't have anything cooking. I don't have anything brewing. Oh, I do remember yeah, I can probably talk about this. Like the whole thing I ended this morning's episode with, which was, you know, that whole situation where people, there's been two people now who blocked me because I react to too many messages, and just how frustrating that is for me. Like I just don't get it. And so especially digital social spaces, I think they have so much potential. They can be so fun and so good and so easy, but it's like it's always this repeating pattern where it's very obvious that most people are not using them in that kind of concentrated way that I think they ought to be used as. And I guess that's like a whole other debate, because you can make the argument that, like, who am I to say how things should or shouldn't be used? But I think in certain circumstances, you can absolutely distinguish, like, you know, like a better or worse outcome based on particular usage of things. Like, you can't just have this whole, like, you know, not judgmental about anything, but then it's like, oh, well, you know, if somebody likes cigarettes, just leave them alone. No, you know, in the past, we did stand up to that and try to move forward and say, no, like, you know, the evidence is cigarettes are bad, and you don't have some kind of like, oh, well, let's not judge it because it's like, it's an expression of humanity. Let's just let it go. Um, but it seems like we're really coming back into those kinds of mindsets about things now. Where it just seems like that's really what we're dealing with anymore. Is it always comes to like people don't like to say that things should or shouldn't be a certain way. And I think it's pretty frustrating. I mean, in some cases, I think I can be too overbearing about it because obviously there's certain opinions I have that are opinions, and then, I'm able to over rationalize an opinion, but I guess that doesn't warrant it being like the correct way to do something. So I guess I want to be open to there being different use cases for like online digital interactions, but ultimately there is still a spectrum of superiority when it comes to interactions. And I guess it gets complicated because I'm not talking about individually, I'm talking about objectively. And while as an individual, technically all social interactions are completely subjective because certain people are bothered by things that other people love, and so it's hard to rank all social interactions objectively, but it is absolutely possible to distinguish because certain people may use certain type of humor that is darker, that is more evil in nature. It might be further and deeper on the hedonistic curve, and you can actually make a pretty clear argument that there's no reason for it. I feel like it's pretty obvious to make that argument that like, at some point, when do you draw a line in the sand about humor? Like it just seems to me like there has to be at some point. Like, I don't know. And the way a lot of people operate is they just go down whatever rabbit hole they go down and operate to their heart's content with whatever technology can provide. But, that isn't even, it just creates such a disparity, such an inequality to things. And so what I mean is I think by any metric you can kind of rate and rank degrees of social interaction, and not to say that it's necessarily right or wrong or good or bad or better or worse, but yeah, like not to say that that's the case. But I feel like some things it's like, come on. There's certain interactions that are just very like minimal. They're just full of humor. They're like really, there's just not much to it. And there's no purpose or reason behind it or about it. Period. And how can you rank that as being better than a deep discussion about something important that causes growth? Right? Or like, somebody can have a humor joking conversation, but I think here's a better example. Like, you can be a bully and get laughter out of being a bully, but then you can also be, have humor that's does not cause a negative impact on another, right? And that's obviously important to quantify. Many people don't, because again, and I know how GPT is going to think about it, it's not going to want to quantify what I'm saying, but I think the truth stands that it's like some humor is going to be inherently better or worse than others objectively, even if subjectively you technically can't judge it. Like, obviously, what I'm saying isn't, it's not really something that can be objective, I guess. I'm trying to think of how to word it. So it's like, there is an objective. There is a way where if an AI let's imagine we're in the age of like hyper surveillance and an AI has recorded messages and thoughts and words of every single person and could be able to generate like a score sheet. It would be able to generate some kind of an objective score sheet for the depth of a person's humor, the intellect of a person's humor, the proportion one person has to be engaged with humor and another person has to be engaged with something productive. I mean, these are things that most people cast aside as personality traits, and some people are just lazy and some people aren't. But there is a superiority to it. There absolutely is. Some people are better able to execute and have skills that are more important or manifest than others. I mean, in my case, I think that it's really going to be in the future. Once AI kind of becomes entrenched in everything, I think that my mind's really going to be able to work. And prior to that, I don't know that I really have all that much to, like, I don't think I'm really going to be able to succeed until I'm in that environment. So prior to then, especially when I was a child, the way I am is like horrible for a child or for a teenager. It's just not really what you're supposed to be like as a teenager or child. You're not fitting the social expectations. So, yeah, what else is there to say? It just was very frustrating, but I have a feeling that we're going to see an onslaught of a lot of this stuff, and then I might finally be able to find my footing in the world, especially as it pertains to content generation and things along those lines. It's like a whole thing basically. Um, so yeah. But I think it's important because you still can have an objective ranking even if it's impossible to convey, is what I mean. So, like, I don't know that I have the capacity necessarily to accurately quantify things, but that doesn't mean that there's no merit to what I'm saying. There is like, there are some people who just have superior humor where the humor incurs less of a karmic debt and is equally as funny. That's an example. Um, right? I mean, like this is true. This is true stuff. And I don't need to be the arbiter of it, but I know it exists. Like I said, there's a certainty in that. But I guess what nullifies how much it matters is that if it, whatever is objective, it's kind of what I said about the data thing. Like, if you have a graph and you have a bunch of points all over the place and you draw a line straight in the middle and the line's not even near any of the points, it's sort of like it's not as relevant. In the same sense, having an objective framework that is never going to matter to anybody sort of nullifies the point. But I want to try to articulate this properly because I have a feeling GPT is just immediately going to cast it aside. It's just going to say, no, 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 you can't dictate that. But I'm certain that I can. I'm certain that there is cases of consequential humor, and some humor is more ethical than others. Like, I feel like this is self-evident, or at least I would think it's self-evident personally. And you know, that's just I really want to be kind of firm about that. But what I'm learning is, when I'm firm about things, like I can't just be firm about them, and just end the conversation. Like, there has to be more elaboration. And so that's why I'm trying to elaborate. Because, like, I think in the past, what I would do is when I feel like I'm onto something, like, I try to muscle it through GPT and I just say it. And I just say it, and I'm like, I really think I'm onto something. I know but I think maybe those few words are not really, like, that starts kind of like cutting me short. And so what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to articulate really what I'm getting at, which is a much, like, it's not really some clear answer. And that's, I think, what is most, I guess, different about what I do, or what I'm capable of, is just that, like, vast looking at a bunch of different things and just being able to straddle it all into one concept. And that way it's just better than, oh, like, well, I know I'm onto something with this. There is objective humor and there is objective, like, action, and then GPT is just going to say there isn't. But I know it's there. It's just about, like, I guess the interpretation, right? Like I was saying earlier, because it's not going to be relevant, or it's never going to matter. But I don't think that ceases to, like, I think it's just true. It's just oftentimes when people try to sort it, they can't really sort it properly. And it gets dangerous because you have, like, certain people thinking certain people are better than others when in reality that might not be the case. So whenever there's been, like, a government that has tried to set this up, or even groups and organizations, that's why I don't think it pans out. But I don't think it means that it just isn't the case, because I feel like it's so obvious that certain people's lifestyles and ideologies do have a greater yield than others. And I don't think it's just because of, like, environment, although that is obviously a factor. The rules and the morals and things to do that you would need to do to survive and prosper in a first world country might be completely useless in a third world country, for example, or in a better example, prehistoric times. You know, so environment does play a role for sure. Uh, um, Environment does play a role for sure. You know, but I do think there are just certain people well, man, that's actually a whole other conversation, because you could say that certain people's superiority essentially is just environmentally driven. Like it's not that is kind of yeah, I mean there's a lot of people where it's like, you know, so that actually gets into actually another thing that I think is true and accurate, which is that um like a person's superiority, it's not usually due to that person. They have to be unlocked by their environment, which is why I don't think it's right to get into the ego. You know, the ego, like in getting like, oh well, this person's genetics are better than that like, because it's more complex. Like I've illustrated before, somebody could have amazing genetics, but then, you know, it's just never unlocked because you have like a system like you have now where um you know, before below a certain income level, it's pretty difficult to get ahead or get anywhere if you don't have if your parents don't own a home and if you don't have like some kind of generational wealth. Even if you're like amazing genetics, you can really be bogged down in the system, and that's kind of a flaw with having the system the way it is now. Why it's good to kind of have a minimum that lets people just have a decent standard of living. That's why that's important, because you know, you do have some people who are in poverty, but you know, they're born and they end up with good good genetics. I mean, it happens all the time, but I think so many people get overshadowed. And then a lot of things too, I mean, it has to be some kind of a conjunction as well, because you can also have good genetics be tarnished, right? Like I kind of have a feeling if you had like if you were born with amazing genetics, but you grew up in a horrible area and you weren't able to get out of that area until you're like 30 or 40, you may be like pretty permanently affected. And there may be like a lot of trauma or just a lot of mental fatigue from having to go through that that really prevents you from succeeding in the way that you would want to, if that makes sense. Um, I just have a feeling that you know that's a legitimate thing there. So it's yeah, I mean, environment unlocks genetics, but it probably can also ruin them too. And so when we're talking about like how a person, that's why I don't think like I don't think it's as logical to be like all crazy about free will. That's why I don't think it's as logical. It has its benefits for the self to be motivated, but like when we judge other people who aren't ourselves, I don't think we should be thinking about free will. I think it's probably a good idea for yourself to believe that you have free will because it kind of makes you feel more in control of your life and all that good stuff. Um, but when we judge others, I don't think we should judge people like that. I think we should judge other people around us based on their environment, because I don't think it's going to lead to compassion for you to just assume that other people have like the same amount of willpower as you, or to have an expectation on willpower. So I wonder if I mean, I'm sure other people have takes on this, but that's kind of an interesting thing to think about. Like, you as an individual should treat yourself with free will, but you should not treat other people like as if, like you give other people credit or not credit. You should just look at other people based on their environment. But for yourself, there's probably merit to trying your best and believing that you are autonomous over your life, even if you're not. But for other people, I think it causes like some incorrect takes. I think some people just get like, oh, well, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and like, and those kind of people, those kind of mentalities, I think the systems they set up are not as fair and a lot of times don't even make as much sense, because not everybody has bootstraps on their boots. So how can you pick, you know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of what I try to think about. Yeah, you can pick yourself up by your bootstraps, but not everybody can. Some people's incarnate reality is their boots don't have straps and they're trying to pick themselves up, but it's harder to walk in boots that are loose and, are in the wrong size. So I think that's why I think a more compassionate way to look at it is like I described, whereas in my case it can be debilitating to assume that your environment is the determiner of your fate, because yeah, it can be bad to think that way, that the environment is the determiner of your fate. Because then I've kind of just been a victim of that, because I don't think it's the only thing. I think I just get in my head about stuff as well, and I've just, my mind, like I was saying earlier, it's not a good mind for a child. It's not really a good mind for a teenager either, but it's a good mind for an adult. It is. It's a good mind and a good thing for an adult. So I'm just biding my time. And then I do have some pretty strong hunches about just how good my brain is for working with AI. And once those models finally get better, I think I'm really, and it's not just the models, it's how we use AI that's really important. It's how we interact with it. Once there's a brain chip and I'm really able to get to work, like that's really going to be when I'm unlocked. And I don't know when that could be. We may be pretty far from that, and it might take until maybe I'm like 60. But I genuinely think I'm going to have like a second wind if I can just live to that point with the brain chip. Because even now, like I try to use AI, but it is such an inefficiency to have to do this transcript, copy paste, and all, like if and to record, and I mean, imagine if I didn't have to record and there was just all my thoughts and spoken words were just constantly getting funneled into GPT. That's what I want. It would be so easy, so good, so important. And it would help me out a lot. Because even now, I mean, this is only words, it's only verbal words. And again, it is kind of a hassle to always have to like copy paste it from this app into that app, and it's not all under the same app, and there's a lot of things I could, right? Like it's not where it should be right now. And I really think the brain implant, once that's the case, and that's why I'm saying I hope it would be sooner rather than later, but it's kind of safe to say I might be like 60 years old when that comes out. But when it does, I think I'll finally be free. Like I'll finally be able to do something spectacular, do spectacular things. I don't know quite yet, but it's just It's just a whole thing. Oh, right. I was ending these early. It's been schla, and now it's time to buy schla. So, see you, schla. Oh, wait. I didn't end it.